Hi, everyone. Welcome to Tech Time. My name is Julie Spear, and I'm the Assistant Director and Senior Instructional Designer in A.T. Still University's Teaching and Learning Center, or TLC. Today's Tech Time will be broken into two parts. First, I'll provide a very brief overview of this month's Canvas in 5, and then I'll do a demonstration in Canvas. After that, we'll stop the recording and we'll open the floor to Q&A and discussion. So for that reason, if you're in the Zoom room today, please hang on to your questions until the end. Before we start, I want to offer two very brief reminders. First, the previous month's Canvas in 5 videos and Tech Time recordings are available on our YouTube channel called the Learning Channel. Additionally, attending Tech Time or reporting your engagement with the Tech Time recordings is eligible for half a credit toward Level 2 Technology of the Level Up Certificate Program. Now, Tech Time and Canvas this month both focused on options that you have to engage with after students have taken the quizzes that you've built in Canvas. Specifically in Canvas in 5, we explored how you can generate reports to view analytics from your students' grades. And in today's Tech Time, we're going to focus on how you can moderate the quizzes, grade them, and provide your students with feedback. As we've explored over the last few months, the interface will look slightly different for new quizzes and classic quizzes here. So let's start with new quizzes. So here to get into the new quiz, we can either click on the name of the quiz and go all the way down to build, or alternatively, we can use these three buttons on the right-hand side to immediately access the build feature. From here, we can choose the Moderate tab. On this tab, you'll see a couple different pieces of information. If you have a large class and you're looking for a particular student, you could use the search feature here. We can also use this filter option to show all of the participants, look at only those with no attempts left, attempts in progress, students who have submitted work, or for whom the auto grading failed. So for example, here we could filter by no attempts left to grade the quizzes that have been submitted. Looking across this row, we can see the name of the student, the number of attempts that they had. Here we had only allowed one attempt, but if multiple attempts were allowed, we could view those here. We can see the score for the student that's been generated, but keep in mind here that while multiple choice and a number of different types of questions can be automatically graded, short answer questions cannot. So this is not necessarily a finalized score yet. We can see the time that the students spent on the quiz. We can also view the log for each student, indicating what students did as they went through the quiz. We can also see that this student did not have any set accommodations, but we could adjust those in two different ways. If we need to set accommodations for the student for all quizzes in the course, we can click on their name and make adjustments to their accommodations for this and other quizzes. So here, for example, we could add a time adjustment by giving additional time, removing the time limit, or offering a time limit multiplier. So for example, double the time. We could reduce the number of choices. So here, this would remove one incorrect answer from all multiple choice questions that have 4 or more answer choices. Or we could use this pencil icon to add accommodations for this quiz only. So here, clicking on the pencil, we could see we could reopen the current attempt. We could allow additional attempts for this quiz only, make those time adjustments, or reduce the choices for this quiz in particular. If you do make any of these adjustments, remember to click the blue Apply button to save those. So now let's grade this attempt. We can click on the attempt to get into it, and here we can see the results that are the automatic score provided by the quiz based on what we told the quiz are correct and incorrect answers. But as I mentioned, we will also need to manually grade certain types of questions, particularly the short answer questions. So that's what's being indicated here, that question 4 needs to be manually graded. Let's skip to that question. And so here we can see this question was asking students to describe epidemiology in their own terms. And here, as a sample response, a student might have written something like epidemiology is the study of disease in the human population. Now we have several options to grade this response. If this were fully correct, we can use the checkbox to automatically apply 1 out of 1 point. We can click on the X to automatically apply 0 out of 1 point. Alternatively, if a student has received partial points, you can actually type that in here. Because these are fractions, you'll want to click and enter the text. But if these were full points, you can use these up and down arrows. Over on the left-hand side, we have an option to give additional feedback to the student about this response. So here, clicking into this, we might leave feedback here like partial points earned. This is correct, but lacked depth of response. And we would want to hit done to save that feedback. Now, for the questions that were automatically graded by the system, we do have an option to review those and add additional comments as well. So for example, here, we could add additional comments. We can regrade this if this were not correct. If we had accidentally made a mistake in our choices or in the number of points for the question, we could regrade that. And we can manually adjust the score if this were to be mistaken. So I just wanted to point out here that you do have the option to add additional feedback or adjust scores for questions that were automatically graded by the system. At the very bottom of the quiz, you also have space to manually adjust the score by adding positive or negative points. So this is an option for you. You can use these up or down arrows like we discussed before, or you can type in points. So for example, if across the board we wanted to add 2 points to every person's quiz, we could do so using these fudge point options. When you're done scoring or updating the quiz, do remember to click the blue update option, and that will update the results. If we scroll up to the top, we can see that that score has been adjusted. And if we go back to moderate, we can see that score has also updated from the 12 points that we're showing before. If we go back to quizzes, we can also get to the moderate options using Speed Grader. So I'll do that right now. And here we can scroll down to our sample student. And on the left-hand side, we'll see a very similar layout as we saw before going through moderate, but I did want to point out that Speed Grader offers the option for you to leave additional assignment comments in the Speed Grader right-hand column, which we could submit and save for the student. Going back to the quiz page, we can now look at a sample classic quiz, and this will look very similar, but have slight user interface differences. Clicking on the name of the quiz, we can go over to the right-hand side to moderate this quiz. And here we can see a table that looks similar to the one in the new quizzes. We have the option to search people here. So again, if you have a long class list, this can be really helpful. For each student, you can see their name, the number of attempts, the amount of time it took for them to finish the quiz, how many attempts are remaining. In this case, there was only 1 attempt allowed, but if multiple attempts were enabled in the quiz, you would see so here. You can see the automatic score provided. Again, we'll have to manually score short answer questions. Like in new quizzes, at the far right-hand side, we have a pencil icon, which will allow us to add adjustments or extensions to the quiz. In this case, a time limit was not set for the quiz, which is why we're not seeing an option here to allow extra time, because there was unlimited time available for the quiz. But if a time limit was set, we would see that here. And what we can do is add extra attempts for the student in particular, like we had the option to do in the new quizzes. So to grade a student and to see the log for that student's quiz, we need to click on the name of that student. And here at the top right, we can see a view log. This will again show us timestamped information about their quiz. And going back, we can begin to grade and moderate this quiz. Like in new quizzes, you do have to manually grade the short answer questions. So that's what this red box is telling us, that the question number 2 is what needs a particular review. So here we can see the short answer question. We can add additional comments here. And we can manually enter the number of points we want to provide to the student for their answer. So here again, we could do full points, no points, or we could enter in partial points. Like in new quizzes, we also have the opportunity to review questions that were automatically graded by the system, the student answered this question incorrectly, which is what's being indicated here, but we could leave additional comments like we did for the short answer question. Or perhaps we noticed that all students found a question to be confusing and we want to add points back for every student. Because of that, we can manually adjust scores here. So we might say something like, this question was confusing. I added points back. So you do have the option to manually adjust scores in questions that were automatically graded by the system. Similarly, you can use those fudge points at the bottom. So we could do that instead of adding points back for an individual question to say that all students earned, for example, 1 point back. After grading the quiz, do remember to click Update Scores. From this page view, we also can allow an extra attempt, or like we talked about, we can do that from the pencil icon on the Moderate Quiz page. Like in new quizzes, we also have the opportunity to use SpeedGrader. And here we could go into our sample student. We could moderate the quiz from this page and leave additional feedback on the right-hand side. Again, if you do put information or feedback here, remember to hit submit to save that response. Now that we've looked at some of the basics for how you grade and moderate quizzes, I did want to highlight how things look if students have used multiple attempts. Going back to the Moderate tab for the new quiz, we can see that we're able to actually access every attempt a student submits. So here we could click on attempt 1 of 2 to see the initial responses that were submitted by the student, and then we can click into the second attempt to view their updated response. Switching over to classic quizzes, we can again see from the Moderate quiz table if a student has submitted more than one response. Here, to get into that, we need to click on the student's name. Entering into this student's quiz, we can see that we are defaulted to the latest attempt here, but we can switch between the second and the first attempt using these links on the right-hand side under the header called Quiz Submissions. So here I can click attempt 1 to access that, or click to access attempt 2 again. Now let's look at things from the student perspective. From the gradebook, students will be able to see the quizzes, the number of points that they earned, and any comments left to them by the instructor in SpeedGrader. So starting with the new quiz here, they can click on this bubble to see any feedback left in SpeedGrader. And then they can enter the quiz by clicking on the name of it. This will open the quiz for viewing, and they can see the number of points that they earned, the time that they spent, those SpeedGrader comments. And as they scroll through, they can review the questions, their answers, the correct answers, and any additional feedback provided by the instructor. Similarly, for classic quizzes, they can again view the comments and enter the quiz. If students were allowed multiple attempts, they will be able to see all the scores for those attempts and can again view the feedback and the questions right in this format. So that takes us to the end of our time for today. Over the last few months, we've explored options you have in Canvas as you build out new and classic quizzes and use them in your teaching. These have been brief overviews, so if you'd benefit from individualized support or conversations, or would like to brainstorm what it would look like to use quizzes in your teaching context, feel free to connect with the TLC. Additionally, we'll share some resources in the chat and in the YouTube description to help you get started.